Under the Indian sky, amidst brushstrokes and the scent of spices, a story is born that transcends borders. When two souls meet under a torrential rain, destinies intertwine mysteriously. Among snow globes and similar verses, an artist discovers that some paths, even if impossible, need to be traversed, even if it means cycling across entire continents. On that humid monsoon afternoon, Arun Sharma was cleaning his worn-out brushes under the makeshift shelter he called his studio. At just 24 years old, his face already bore worry lines that aged his Indian features. In the Johari market, amidst the hustle and bustle of vendors and the aroma of spices, he was just another street artist struggling for daily survival. The easel before him held an unfinished portrait, while the small snow globe rested on his paint box, his most precious possession, found in a thrift shop years ago. Inside it, a tiny snow-covered pine tree represented a world Arun only knew from photographs. "Someday, Mother," he murmured, looking up at the laden sky. The memory of his mother was a constant presence, especially on rainy afternoons like that one. Before departing this world, she had held his paint-stained hands and whispered, "Follow where love points. God takes care of the path." Arun's stall was nothing much, just a faded tarp stretched between two posts, protecting his art supplies and the few belongings he possessed. The portraits he sold for a few rupees were his only source of income. Some tourists paid well, but most haggled down to the last penny. Raised under the care of his Aunt Kamla since he was 12, Arun had learned to value every small achievement. Aunt Kamla, a seamstress with skillful hands and an even more generous heart, taught him persistence through her own life. At 52, she supported herself and her nephew with sewing jobs, never complaining about the long hours bent over fabrics. "Arun, come here, brother. I need to show you something." The familiar voice of Rafik sliced through the humid air. His childhood friend and local mechanic was a slender figure, always with grease-stained hands, but with the most sincere smile in Jaipur. "I don't have time today, Rafik. The rain will fall at any moment, and I need to put my things away." "It's quick. I fixed that old bike from the scrapyard. It's a beauty now." The bike was an object of fascination for Arun. Not that he could afford one. The money barely covered basic needs. But there was something about the freedom two wheels provided that made him dream. The sky suddenly darkened, and the first heavy drops began to fall. Arun hurried to protect his drawings. The rain soon turned into a dense curtain, and the market streets quickly emptied. It was when she appeared. Drenched from head to toe, blonde hair sticking to her face, the woman ran towards Arun's makeshift shelter. Her light eyes contrasted with her fair skin, now flushed from the cold rain. "Can I stay here until the rain stops?" she asked in hesitant English, her voice trembling slightly. Arun nodded awkwardly, moving to make space. The foreigner seemed out of place. As if she had stepped out of one of the tourism catalogs, he occasionally flipped through for inspiration. "Tea, I have masala chai," he offered, pointing to the small stove where he kept hot water. "Yes, thank you," she smiled, and something in that smile struck Arun like never before. While preparing the tea, he instinctively grabbed his sketchpad. The candlelight danced on the foreigner's face, creating a perfect play of shadows. Without thinking much, he began to draw. "I am Freja Lindgren from Sweden," she said, accepting the steaming cup of tea. "Arun Sharma," he replied, without taking his eyes off the drawing coming to life under his fingers. Freja watched the empty marketplace through the curtain of rain. "I came for a design conference. I'm a product designer in Stockholm." Arun just nodded, focused. There was something in her eyes, a mix of weariness and determination that he was trying to capture on paper. "I recently lost my grandmother," she continued, as if feeling the need to fill the silence. "Amma, as I called her, she taught me everything about seeing beauty in the details. She used to say that God writes straight in the details of life." Arun paused his drawing. "My mother used to say something similar, that God looks after the path when we follow love." Their eyes met, an unexpected connection forming between them. The rain continued to fall, but time seemed to have frozen in the small tent. When the storm finally subsided, Arun handed the portrait to Freja. She examined it silently, her eyes welling up. "Is this how you see me?" she asked, running her fingers over the lines of the drawing. "It's how the light revealed you," he replied simply. Freja insisted on paying for the portrait despite Aaron's protests. Before leaving, she pulled something out of her pocket that made the artist's heart stop, a small snow globe, almost identical to his. "For when you truly know snow," she said, placing the object in his palm. Aaron, speechless, pointed to the verse written on a piece of paper hanging on his easel, the same one his mother had told him before leaving. Freja paled. "That's exactly what was on the last note my Amma left me." They both laughed, bewildered by the coincidence that seemed more than chance. In the 5 days before Freja returned to Sweden, they met daily. Aaron showed her the colorful alleys and ancient temples, while she told him about the snow falling in Stockholm and how the streets became silent under the white blanket. At the airport, the farewell was brief, but full of unspoken promises. "When you come to Stockholm, write to me," said Freja, handing him a card with her address. "I will," replied Aaron. "God takes care of the journey." The messages began timidly. A postcard, a letter describing the first day of snow in Stockholm, a sketch of the streets of Jaipur at dawn. Soon, they turned into long letters where they shared not just their daily lives, but also their dreams and fears. Freja confessed that the apartment in Stockholm felt too big without Amma's presence. Aaron described how each sunset in Jaipur made him think of her. "I bought cardamom tea today," he wrote one night. "The aroma made me feel as if your Amma were praying for us." The letters became more frequent, more intimate. They talked about a future that seemed unlikely, but that they both believed was possible. She would design mugs to warm their hands during Nordic winters. He would portray her sitting by the window, with the first snow falling outside. Then the first obstacle emerged, in the form of an official letter from the Swedish consulate. Visa denied. Insufficient income, no guarantees of return to the country of origin. Purpose of visit undefined. The cold words marked the paper like scars. Things got worse when a travel blog published a sensationalist article using the portrait Aaron had taken of Freja as an illustration. The headline was cruel. "The Indian Romance Scam, How Street Artists Exploit Naive Tourists." Freja's friends shared the link with messages of concern. "Do you know this man? This seems dangerous, Freja. Stay away while you can." In Jaipur, Aunt Kamla cried, worried about her nephew. "Protect your heart, Aaron. The world is bigger and tougher than you imagine." The letters became less frequent. Messages that were once answered on the same day now took weeks. The silence grew between them like an invisible wall. Aaron temporarily closed his market stall. Freja put the snow globe away in a drawer. The distance seemed insurmountable, until one sleepless night, Aaron held the snow globe in his hands, watching the artificial flakes dance around the small pine tree. His mother's voice echoed in his memory. "God takes care of the path." The next morning, he looked for Rafik in the little bicycle workshop. "If the sky has closed the door, maybe the path is a road," he said, determined. His friend looked at him for a long time before smiling. "Then let's prepare your bicycle for the snow." Aunt Kamla cried when Aaron announced his decision, but did not try to stop him. Instead, she sewed him waterproof bags to protect his belongings and a lined coat that took all her savings in fabric. "Come back to me," was all she asked, hugging him tightly. With a refurbished blue bicycle by Rafik, a crumpled map in his pocket, a sketchbook, and the snow globe as his talisman, Aaron set off. The 7,000-kilometer journey was just beginning. The roads were more difficult than he had imagined. Mountains that appeared as small elevations on the map turned out to be almost insurmountable challenges. The weather changed drastically with every border crossed. But in each difficulty, small miracles appeared. A truck driver offering a ride on an impossible climb, a family opening their doors for a night of shelter, a small church donating a warmer coat when winter began to show its teeth. As he pedaled, Aaron continuously prayed, "If it's a dream, let it be worthy. If it's a purpose, give me strength." In Stockholm, Freja was also facing her battles. Rumors about the Indian scammer threatened her professional reputation. Colleagues asked indiscreet questions, and her boss suggested that she reevaluate her personal connections. One afternoon, while organizing old boxes in the apartment, Freja found a photo album belonging to her grandmother. Among the yellowed pages, a photo caught her attention. Her Amma, decades younger, participating in a humanitarian mission. The location in the caption, Jaipur, on the same street where she had met Aaron. Tears streamed down her face. "This is not a coincidence," she murmured. That same night, she wrote a long post on her personal blog about truth, courage, and how true love knows no boundaries or prejudices. After 3 months of journeying, facing storms, complicated borders, and physical exhaustion, Aaron arrived in the port city of Malmö, in southern Sweden. His funds were nearly depleted, his body more sore than he ever thought possible. Seeking shelter, he entered a small Lutheran church. Pastor Lennart, a 61-year-old man with white hair and kind eyes, welcomed him without asking questions, offering a hot soup and a place to rest. "I came from India, by bicycle, to find someone," Aaron explained, between spoonfuls of soup. The pastor smiled. "There is a girl in Stockholm who might be praying the same prayer as you." That same night, Freja received an unexpected call from an old friend of her grandmother. "I saw your post on the blog. There's a young Indian man in a church in Malmö. He arrived by bicycle and is asking for you." Freja's heart nearly stopped. Without a second thought, she took the first train to Malmö, the snow globe in her coat pocket. When she entered the lobby of the small church, she saw him sitting on a wooden bench beside a blue bicycle that seemed to have lived many lives. He was thinner, with an unshaven beard and deep circles under his eyes, but his eyes lit up when he saw her. "You came," said Freja, tears running down her face. "God watched over the journey," Aaron replied, taking out the snow globe she had given him from his pocket. "And over the details," she added, showing her own globe. Through the church window, the first snowflakes of winter began to fall. It was not by chance. It was purpose. 58 years later, in a cozy house on the outskirts of Stockholm, Aaron, now 82 years old, adjusted his glasses as he watched the snow fall outside the window. Beside him, Freja, at 86, was quietly knitting. The living room was decorated for Christmas, with soft lights and the aroma of cinnamon and ginger cookies filling the air. On the main bookshelf in the living room, 2 identical snow globes held a place of honor. Beside them, photos of children, grandchildren, and even some great-grandchildren told the visual story of the Sharma Lindgren family. "Morfar, tell us once again how you met Mormor," asked one of the younger grandchildren, using the Swedish terms for grandfather and grandmother. Aaron smiled, exchanging a knowing look with Freja. "It was a rainy afternoon in Jaipur." The family gathered around, as they had done so many times before. The grown children, who had grown up hearing the story, were still moved by the details. The older grandchildren filled in parts they knew by heart. "And is this the bicycle that brought you to Grandma?" another grandson asked, pointing to the old blue bicycle carefully preserved and hanging on the wall like a relic. "Yes," Aaron replied, his voice choked with emotion. "Every pedal was a prayer, and every detail God wrote." Freja held his hand, her wrinkled fingers intertwined with his. "I said he took care of the details, remember? And I took care of the path," he replied, with a smile full of memories. One of the children, now gray-haired, added, "You turned a promise into a legacy. If it weren't for your courage, none of us would be here today." The younger children pleaded, "Tell us more. How was it when you saw snow together for the first time?" Freja adjusted her glasses and began again. "It was a cold morning in Malmö. Pastor Lennart served us hot chocolate while the first snowflakes fell outside." As the story continued, Aaron watched his gathered family. From a young street artist with no prospects, he had become the patriarch of a prosperous and united family. The love he had felt for Freja since that rainy afternoon had not diminished over the years. It had only matured, like a fine wine. When the narrative ended, Aaron stood up with the help of his cane and walked to the window. The snow was falling softly, just as it had that day in Malmö. "Love is not measured in kilometers," he said, turning to the family, "but in faithfulness. Be faithful to each other and to God. He always works in the details." Freja joined him at the window, and together they watched the snow cover the garden with its white and pure blanket. 58 winters had passed since he had seen snow for the first time, and each flake still seemed like a small miracle. Among the snow globes that preserved their story, the children's laughter, and the Christmas hymns softly playing in the background, Aaron and Freja were the living testimony that love, when guided by faith, overcomes any distance and endures through generations. The young artist from Jaipur and the Swedish designer had written their own story, not just with ink and paper, but with courage, determination, and an unshakable belief that, in the small details of life, God leaves his greatest messages.